Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. My name is Brandon, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. The mission of Free State Colorado is to promote a culture of liberty, freedom of the individual, and free markets. Today, I'm joined by two of Colorado's political party leaders to discuss a historic agreement designed to help restore liberty to our great state. Dave Williams is the chairman of the Republican Party of Colorado, and Hannah Goodman is the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. Just recently, they announced an agreement between the two of them and their leadership teams that they will work together to not compete with each other in races where there are pro liberty candidates. Well, Dave and Hannah, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Good to be here, Brandon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Perfect. Well, first of all, let's start with the agreement. Let's start with the basics. What exactly are you agreeing to?
Who would you like to go first, me or Hannah?
Go for it, Dave.
Okay. Well, I mean, the agreement is quite simple. If there are candidates who are pro-liberty, who are going to fight for limited government and maximize our freedoms in Colorado in partisan races, then the Libertarians will not run competing candidates in those competitive races and potentially spoil the election of a good candidate made in the same vein as Rand Paul, for example. Now it's on us, it's on Republicans to perform and offer up those candidates so that we can make sure that our end of the bargain is being upheld. But I'm excited that Hannah even wanted to explore this option. I think it's groundbreaking, it's historic, and it's the first step in defeating Democrats and breaking their one-party rule.
The deal is that libertarians, if we decide that the Republican candidate meets our criteria for liberty, things like being a very firm free market capitalist, all for healthcare rights, parental rights, really strong on the Second Amendment, unwavering to liberty, we will do our best to convince our delegates at convention that that candidate is far better, and the resources spent on that race are going to be better for Colorado rather than better for the party. They, at the end of the day, would be better for our party because eventually we will be more free. And alternatively, we really have a local candidate focus. We are looking at things like school boards, city councils, mayor runs, things of that nature, because actually there are more of those positions available, right? They take a lot less money to fund. And so it really conserves our resources and our activist efforts to get out and door knock and things like that. I am a minor third party, so I have very limited resources. So I need to be very smart and very wise at how I apply that to advancing liberty through my own candidates. And both positions are equally valuable. If you look at the doctrine of lesser magistrates, really your local and smaller governments, because there's so much more of them, they have the power to stop your government from infringing on your rights. They have the right to nullify anything they think is an infringement on the Constitution and your rights. And so we really want to get our candidates in those seats, and we want to start filling them and building a really strong base of liberty from the bottom up.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one of the key factors that you said is the limited resources. What's the best use of limited resources? People who are politically aware in Colorado probably know that the Democrats have a total establishment structure. They have a professional political class, people working full time, nearly 24/7, 365 to advance their agenda, to take over political seats and political positions across the state. Lots of money behind them, lots of out-of-state money behind them. And the reality is that, Republicans, libertarians, really it's hard for anybody to compete with this power and money that the Democrats have. So how do you use how do you use your limited resources wisely in this type of situation? You can't fight them on the same level, you know?
Well, I can definitely focus on these lower races that are far more inexpensive to run candidates. I know that here I'm in Phillips County. Anyone that runs for city council spends about $50 to run, right? And that's nothing. School board candidates here spend $0. And actually, more often than not, our city council candidates spend $0 as well. So for me, that's fiscally responsible, isn't it? I have very limited income, although my fundraising is through the roof since I took vice chairmanship, and our team worked on creating a nice buffer in our bank account, but we don't actually have very much money to pour into these races. Of course, when you get into the larger populated areas on the Front Range, on the Western Slope like Grand Junction and things like that, you're going to spend more money. Dollar for dollar, I'm going to spend way less money running candidates and helping them on these local levels. I also have county affiliates that are very active. And so I can tap into my county affiliates where we have people who can organize and door knock for free. We have provided e-canvasser software. That's how we got the mayor of Keensburg elected, for instance. And comparatively, that was so much more inexpensive than running a state candidate. Not only that, we haven't had any state candidate run and win in Colorado. In fact, the only state candidate that's even anywhere near me in a very long time was Marshall Burt in Wyoming, and he's no longer sitting there. And all the money that was spent to get him elected that was essentially wasted. I feel you should have more than one term if you're sitting in the state legislature. To advance liberty, it just makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And so, Dave, what does the Republican Party get out of this agreement?
Well, we get a chance to put up better candidates. That's number one. Candidates who will actually keep their promises on limiting government and creating an environment that has less regulation, less taxes, more freedom, more individual liberty. A lot of the things that the Republican Party promises, but so often fails to deliver. That's number one. So freedom for everyone. And a better crop of candidates coming from our party. But, the second part of it is that we actually might be able to win competitive races that are determined on razor-thin margins. Everyone kind of understands that the spoiler effect does happen from time to time. It doesn't always happen. And there's a lot of establishment Republicans that would like to blame third parties all the time. But it is still something that happens from time to time. And I think if you look at 2022's election for Congressional District 8 specifically, where we had Barb Kirkmeyer lose to now Congresswoman Caraveo, and then you also look at the State Board of Education race where Peggy Probst, our nominee, lost to the Democrat because of the American Constitution Party candidate. I think it's clear that there are times where this is a problem and this does happen. And it wasn't just in those races. There were actually, as near as I could tell, a handful of state legislative races where we lost because of a third party candidate siphoning enough votes away that it allowed for the Democrat to get it across the finish line. So we have the ability to win those close races. And what's, I think, remarkable to understand is that even though the Democrats are better financed than us, they still need every penny in order to win these races. The one thing that we have going for us is that we have the truth on our side. When we're able to convey the message of liberty, when we're able to talk about how Democrats are out of touch or how they're corrupt, that doesn't take as much money as Democrats would need in order to further their message. So this puts us in a position to maximize our chances of winning those close races. And I think that should give hope to everyone that even though they're better financed, even though they illegally ballot harvest and take advantage of dirty voter rolls, we can still win. And it's just a matter of building the right coalitions. And this was the right move. After years of failed Republican leadership doing the same thing over and over again, it's come high time that we think outside the box and work with like-minded third parties or even our other organizations that could help us put forward candidates that are going to reverse the bad decisions of radical Democrats across Colorado.
Yeah, it is very exciting. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that the Democrats don't have such an ironclad grip on the state as many people think they do. Just last year in 2022, there were 12 state House races where Democrats won with less than 3,000 votes. I mean, you flip 12 of those seats to Republican, it's nearly an even split at that point. So I think the messages should be well received by people who believe in liberty and freedom, a hopeful message that here's an opportunity now to do something different, to make an impact. And hey, let's come together and change things because it's not going in a good direction. I think we all know that. Definitely. I think another key point, something that people might not know, is that, this is really is historic for many reasons. And I think not everybody knows that just this year, both Hannah and Dave were elected into their leadership positions. And it's really because of these two people who believe in liberty, believe in freedom, and are willing to take bold steps that this is even possible. As Dave mentioned, for many years, Republicans have been doing the same thing over and over, hiring the same consultants, sending out the same lame milquetoast messaging, and really focusing on paying themselves rather than actually getting involved with candidate races. So it's pretty interesting to see how the parties have changed so much in Colorado. And I think because the Democrats have gone so far, there is this new historic opportunity. So, Hannah, what is your message to critics out there in your party who are criticizing you for saying, "Hey, you're just cozying up to the GOP. We're supposed to be different than them. We're supposed to be libertarians because we're not the same like Republicans." What would you say to these people?
It is incredibly important to have voluntary trades where two people can agree on terms, and if those terms are not met, they can immediately cut the contract. And so that's really what we have here. We have agreed. My delegates elected me to do this job and do exactly what I'm doing here right now. Colorado is incredibly excited that within the first 2 months of my election, I'm already getting to work and doing and making the deals that I said I was going to. So that's, you know, a strike on the good side for me. But for the critics, really, I want to ask them, how do you really think I should spend my very small, limited resources to advance liberty and to get candidates elected? I believe that the party is to advance liberty primarily, and we do that secondarily by running candidates. So if liberty is my end goal, and it is, I can assure you, then I'm going to have to find very creative ways to advance liberty. And this deal that we have right here costs me nothing. In fact, I do gain from it. What do I gain from it? Well, the Libertarian Party is putting together a list of things we find acceptable for liberty-leaning Republicans. They're not going to fit my bill 100%. We do disagree on a few issues, right? And that's totally okay, because I would rather argue about how far down we're going to shrink the government than trying to fight the expansion of it. That is the most important thing to me. And if stopping the expansion of government is not important to you, I want to ask yourself, are you really a real libertarian?
I love it. I love it. And I think both the Libertarian Party and the Republican Party have a lot in common in that over years past, a lot of members left the parties. A lot of Republicans, I mean, I was there, left the Republican Party because they weren't, a lot of the candidates, a lot of the leadership wasn't adhering to principles of liberty, to principles of free markets and individual freedom and all of that. And I think that's part of the reason why, Dave, why you got elected is because you represented this change where so many establishment Republicans failing and selling out to the Democrats and just becoming another version of an authoritarian political class. People got tired of that. The party faithful, the Republicans who really truly believe in our American values, are tired of that, and that's why they elected you this year.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of, for the critics to understand, especially those within the Libertarian Party, that I understand completely why they don't trust Republicans generally. I understand completely why they can't stand national party leaders or local party leaders, because, again, Republicans have not done a great job at keeping their word. They haven't done a great job at advancing liberty and shrinking government. But one of the things that you alluded to was our elections recently. And one thing that, both Republicans and Libertarians should understand about me is that I am a small government, pro-freedom, pro-liberty individual. That was certainly my record in the state legislature. If you look at Liberty Scorecard, you can absolutely see how I was easily one of the top rated pro-liberty, limited government conservatives. I was also a member of the Hazlitt Coalition with Young Americans for Liberty. Just so you know, they don't let any old Republican and Young Americans for Liberty. They have a pretty robust vetting process to make sure you're not a big government sellout. I just so happen, instead of being a libertarian and a part of the Mises Caucus, I just happen to be in the Republican Party, trying to make sure that we push forward the principles that we claim to have. And that is, of course, small government, less regulation. The government, Ronald Reagan said it best: the government is too big and spends too much. Let's get it out of the lives of everyday citizens. And I don't think my libertarian counterparts would disagree.
I definitely do not disagree. I've watched your political career since 2017. I wasn't even registered to vote at the time, but there was legislation coming in that deeply affected my personal family life. And I got involved with an activist group, and you worked with that activist group, feeding us information, helping organize us to the best of your ability. And the year that came up, we completely smashed it. It was reintroduced a year later, and that was tragic. It doesn't necessarily affect me because I homeschool. We are also co-members of Young Americans for Liberty. I hold a membership with them. I hold full memberships with the Mises Caucus and the Young Americans for Liberty. And I am a very proud Young Americans for Liberty member. I think the work that they do is great, and their vetting process is top tier, as my daughter would say. So, and the Hazlitt Coalition is incredible for holding people accountable. If they don't like the job you're doing, they will primary you. They're not like some of these other activist groups within the GOP that constantly say, we're going to primary them. And then they never do. And when somebody comes along and wants to primary one of their terrible rhinos, and they don't want to do that, it's like, okay, well, then you don't really want a primary. So Young Americans for Liberty has that track record. We both work with that organization. And I think that's a really unique point where we intersect. And I've known about you and worked with you technically longer than I have worked with the libertarians. I was also a registered Republican for a very short time, like 9 months. And my leadership here in my county really turned me off. And so I decided, well, I'm definitely not this. What am I? And that is how I ended up in the Libertarian Party, doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of education. I read Human Action at that time. I had already read Hitler's Mein Kampf. I had already read Das Kapital. And so adding human action into that actually changed my life. I never adhered to either of the ideologies of Mein Kampf or Das Kapital at all. I was like, this is not for me. But what is for me? There's nothing for me, because I had just never been exposed to the idea of Ludwig von Mises. And the reason that I am a member of the Mises Caucus is because I have digested that book, as well as a whole list of other books to go along with that. So ideologically, I am very solid, and I am very self-educated, and I'm very proud of that. So we have a lot of areas where we intersect, and I absolutely love your speech on the assembly floor where you said taxation is theft.
Yeah, that was one of my prouder moments in the legislature. Brandon, I think you were there, right, when I said that taxation.
Oh yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
that's how I knew you were legit.
I got a lot of boos and hisses from Democrats. To be fair, I don't know if any other Republican disagreed with my statement, or they at least didn't publicly make it known. But I remember getting booed and hissed by Democrats on the floor, and it was a surreal experience. But it's true. It's, what can I say? When you use force to take other people's things, what else do you call it?
Extortion? I'll settle for that.
So how will this agreement affect both your parties in terms of focusing on the next election? Is it going to shift how your candidate, how you're going to focus your resources, where you're going to push your candidates towards, specific offices, specific races, or is that not a consideration here? Hannah, if you want to go first.
I definitely think it frees me and takes a lot of stress off of how we're going to run candidates. I am an all volunteer organization. None of us get paid. The goal is maybe someday at some magical hour, we'll all walk away with paychecks. As it stands, we do not. So all of us have day jobs. Many of us have more than one job that we focus on, as well as party work. So we have to be very particular how we spend our time, right? Money is obviously the thing that greases the wheel of politics, but time is also a huge part of that. And if you can outwork your opponent, you are already ahead of your opponent. And it can take very minimal money if you have a lot of effort behind you and you have a very focused effort. So for me, I'm going to be able to say, cool, the Republicans are going to look at this. If somebody comes along, we're still going to encourage them to run. We're not endorsing any Republicans. The deal is that we just simply, if we find somebody that is going to match our ideology, we're going to back off. And if somebody still wants to run, technically I can't stop them. Only the delegates at convention can. However, Mises Caucus has the largest, it's a supermajority at our assemblies. And so we vote along the principles that we believe in. So I'm very confident that if Republicans run a very strong liberty candidate, you're going to have no qualms about backing off. The other thing is my candidate pool is very limited, right? There's 40,000 registered, give or take, libertarians in the state. So with that, we have to really organize ourselves very efficiently. And the one thing that the Mises Caucus of Colorado is known for is being very light, quick, agile. I'm with very intelligent people who are into software development, who are into marketing, who are into law. So I have a very strong board, and that carries down throughout the caucus. So we have very, very smart people, but we don't necessarily have to outspend the Democrats. I would also like to point out that Democrats are literally the cronies that they continually accuse the GOP of being. I have never met anyone that spent more to participate in politics than the Democratic Party, especially in the state. And I would like to very vocally remind everyone, cronyism is not capitalism. So cronyism inflates the costs of elections. It keeps lower people from being able to get on the ballot, and it squashes people's choice, right? The amount of money that they spend and the cronyism that goes on there, it actually hurts minorities. It's terrible for the working class. I know. Hey, gas and oil family right here. Ask me how this economy is treating my family. I can assure you it's miserable. So that is the importance, and that's really the most important thing.
Awesome. So, Dave, how is this agreement going to affect the strategy for the Republican Party of Colorado going forward?
It's gonna affect it greatly. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna interface with the other key leaders within the Republican Party. That includes the minority leader of the House, the minority leader of the Senate, and explain to them, the particulars of this deal as it unfolds. And really, the message at its heart is, when you guys recruit candidates, please work with me, because I'll be doing the same. And whatever we do, whoever we identify, we do need to go ahead and be in communication with the Libertarian Party to make sure that these candidates pass muster. Now, if the minority leader of the House and the Senate, if they want to ignore this deal, they're free to do so. This is a free country. I'll do everything I can to make sure we get quality pro-liberty candidates. But if they refuse to do that, then the Libertarians will go ahead and field their own candidates, and that could very well cost us an election. It will definitely cost us anywhere between 3% and 5%. And so my goal is to make sure that other key leaders within the party understand that we have a legitimate opportunity here to clear the field, to really go toe-to-toe with Democrats and not worry about our flank. And if we are really about winning elections and breaking Democrats' stranglehold over Colorado, then we should really play ball and make sure that we're nominating good candidates that really will limit government and advance personal liberty.
Wow, yeah, this is very exciting. It's hard for me to imagine there's anybody out there who who believes in liberty and freedom and the potential for this who can be doubtful. I think there's nothing to lose. There's only a lot that can be gained. And it's like back if you look at the founding days of this country, right? Where this group of colonies, these people with less in common than we probably have now. As Ken DeGraff likes to say, this group of people came together to overthrow the greatest empire the world had known at the time. This loose, disparate group of individuals from these backwaters. So for us to be able to come together as individuals, people who believe in American values and freedom and liberty, to actually come together to fight back against this regime that's taking us nowhere good. I mean, we've seen crime, homelessness, overdoses. We've seen where this democratic control system's going. This year's one of the most outrageously radical in Colorado history in the state legislature, where Democrats have proposed legislation to steal our property for their affordable housing schemes, to confiscate our firearms, basically, to indoctrinate our children to the point of absurdity. So it's really desperate times call for desperate measures in many ways, I believe. And not that this is a desperate measure, it's something that maybe should have happened years ago, but I don't think it's too late to reverse this course. And it makes me very hopeful for the future of Colorado.
Yeah, and one other thing I would point out, and I think it's going to play into, both my strategy and of course the libertarian strategy, is the fact that Governor Polis doesn't get to have a monopoly over what libertarian means anymore. For far too long, he's defined in his terms what he thinks pro-liberty means, and it just so happens that what he thinks is pro-liberty is really tyranny, and on the fringes of even his party. But now he's going to have some competition because the Republican Party and the Libertarian Party are going to team up and really advance what true liberty looks like. And I can assure you, it doesn't involve doing away with Tabor refunds. It doesn't involve taking people's guns. It doesn't involve allowing criminals to run loose and police not doing the one thing they're supposed to be doing, that's protect life and property. We, I think, are in a unique position to tear down this false narrative that Jared Polis has put forward. The greatest trick Jared Polis ever pulled off was convincing people he was a moderate and a libertarian. It is not the case. And I think Hannah and I are very, very up to the task of making sure that Coloradans know the truth.
Absolutely. Just because you can make and spend money doesn't make you a capitalist, right? I know Jared Polis likes to say he has a favorable attitude towards capitalism. Cool. Well, then let's have a free market competition in the marketplace of ideas. And guess what? You're going to outspend me. I already know it. The difference is I have a lot of heart and I'm going to outwork you because I know how to hustle because I'm poor. And I know how to hustle because of that. So, I really want to flip that narrative on its head. And the only reason he can claim he's a libertarian is because he can make and spend money on the projects that he thinks are viable, and good for him. But I'm still coming for you.
So what about Colorado's other third parties or other independent parties? Do either of you have any consideration for working with other parties to help defeat the Democrat majority?
We in the Republican Party are going to explore this option with other third parties that align with us, and I think we'll be able to strike similar deals. It's to be determined, of course. But right now we have a major win in working with libertarians, and I look forward to the opportunity of beating some Democrats in close races. The one thing I will say though is that the Green Party should really consider approaching the Democrats, and if the Democrats don't want to play ball, they should definitely field their third party candidates.
I know that for me, I've already been working with a young man in Pennsylvania who is working on the third party coalition. His idea originally, when I was vice chairman, was to unite third parties across the nation. But the only parties that took the bite were third parties here in Colorado. What I think that is because we have excellent ballot access, and that actually is a liberty, right? That's pretty cool. So I have already met with him before even approaching the Republicans, and we've been working behind the scenes to create a third party coalition. And the idea is that we're going to strategize in a very similar way And we're also going to really focus very hard on single issues in the legislature. The Libertarian Party showed up in full force this legislative session. Every single thing we showed up to oppose in full force, we were able to kill, along with other single like coalitions who go and do that type of lobbying at the Capitol. So we really got our name out there this legislative session, and these other third parties are very, very interested in learning our tactics and going and unifying on issues where we can do single issue coalitions and focus very hard at stopping what happens during the legislative session, because that is a part of politics here in Colorado, right? Candidates is a part, but then what do they do when they're in office, right? How do we control the laws coming down from the legislature every year? And this year was tyrannical. I can't even begin to explain the disgust that I had. And I was very excited that we were able to kill the bill that would have ended the Colorado caucus system, because that would deeply affect third parties, including the Libertarian Party. And I believe representative that, or the senator that introduced it, did so in retaliation for the Libertarian Party being what she calls a spoiler in her CD8 race.
Any comment on that, Dave?
I can't say that I disagree. All I can assure you is that if Senator Kirkmeyer wishes to run for Congressional District 8 again, I'm fairly certain the Libertarian Party will likely field a candidate.
I love it. I love it. Also, Anna, I really liked what you talked about the legislative session. I mean, this idea of this broad coalition, not just about elections and not running candidates against each other, spoiling races, but also working together towards the state legislature. As you said, Libertarian Party, 40,000 members across the state, or registered voters at the very least, to be able to mobilize some of those individuals, some of the party activists in support of good pro-liberty legislation introduced by some of our Republican leaders in the state legislature, I think is a tremendous opportunity. And then also to show up in opposition to some of the bad Republican bills, but more importantly, the bad Democratic bills as well. I think that's a very powerful idea as well.
We had an activist on the assault weapons ban issue. We had activists from the very beginning of the day all the way to the close of that hearing. I believe it was a hearing. And so that shows you the dedication we have to fighting any bad legislation, because that was not introduced by the Republicans. Of course, that was introduced by the Democrats. And I don't intend to, as long as Republicans are introducing liberty-leaning legislation, I don't see why we would took it out too hard in the legislature. I just really don't.
Perfect, perfect. Well, is there anything else either of you would like to talk about?
I guess I'll say this. For anyone that's critical of this deal, for anyone that doesn't think this can work, it's understandable. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And given the situation that we're in for Colorado, meaning that we've had Democrats control the government for a very long time, I think it's necessary that we do something different. I think Hannah said it best. This is not about any one party. This is about advancing liberty. At the end of the day, I care more about principles than I do a party. I care about making sure that every man, woman, and child can live in a free society. And if that's the ultimate aim, if that's the ultimate goal, then we should all understand that parties are not the end all or be all. They're vehicles to be used for the purpose of securing our blessings of liberty, period. So I'm excited about moving forward in this way. Again, we're going to make sure that we're in constant communication with the Libertarian Party so that they are well aware of the candidates that are developing in the field. And they can let us know how they feel about it all throughout. And I, for one, will be a big voice of reason to voters and, of course, key leaders within the party that, hey, we should probably try and win with more liberty candidates. If we don't, then we're likely to fall into the same vicious cycle of Democrats beating us in close races. I think that's a compelling message, and I think it's one that's going to resonate. And the best part about it is that if we can pull it off, if we can have pro-liberty candidates who are our nominees, then they're going to actually be able to compete with the true message of liberty against the false narrative of radical Democrats that are interested in taking your money and your freedom away from
you. Definitely would like to address the hesitation from members in your party. I am very well known here in Phillips County. Phillips County is very connected to GOP in the state. And if you would like to do your research about the type of activist I am in my community, I have a very strong and a very powerful voice. I get a lot of respect. The reason that I have that is because I am more principled than most people that you will ever encounter. And I will unwaveringly adhere to my principles and my morals. And I am an upstanding member of this community. And I know that the Phillips County GOP will have nothing but good things to say about the work that I've done while coalescing with them to keep the people of Phillips County free. And we hold our elected officials very accountable. And I am a very strong voice in that effort. To my own people, I am so thrilled that you have elected me to do this job and you have entrusted me with holding this power for this time so that we can further our goals and play our end game out and stop playing such short range games. My goal as your chairman, as you well know, is to radically change the political landscape of Colorado. And the only way we can do this is by striking radical deals, by showing up and being a very loud and radical voice. And we will always stand on our morals and our principles, and we will always set out to do the things that we said we were going to do. So that is my message to both parties.
Well, yeah, this is a very encouraging moment in my mind. And I'd have to say, too, for people who've maybe stepped away from the political activism or stepped away from the political sphere, people who've maybe given up, I think this is a tremendous opportunity to get back and get involved, to start showing up at your local meetings, whether you're a libertarian or a Republican, show up at your local city council, county commission meetings, really try and find the others like you, the other people who believe in liberty and freedom, because here we are, we're presented with this opportunity to actually do something, to show up, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. Liberty and freedom, it's not easy. It's not easy to achieve, and the Democrats have a lot of resources behind them. But with hard work and people working together and putting aside some of our differences, we can actually make a huge impact. So this is an exciting time in Colorado politics.
Thank you so much for taking time to have me on and to really get into the weeds with this idea and see how it's going to work out and how it's going to grow.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks for having us on. I think these discussions are important. And if anyone has any questions, please visit the Republican Party website for my contact information. That's cologop.org. That's cologop.org. Shoot me an email, drop me a line, and just chat with us. We're excited about advancing liberty and bringing anyone who wants to help us on board. And to borrow a line from Young Americans for Liberty, let's make liberty win.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules, and let's see some great things happen.
Thanks.
Thank you.